Imagine enduring the unimaginable, the depths of suffering that most people can't even fathom. Viktor Frankl, a man who faced horrors beyond words in the Holocaust, did just that. His story isn't just one of survival, though, it's a story of profound revelation and resilience. In the brutal conditions of Nazi concentration camps, Frankl witnessed humanity stripped bare. Yet, even in those darkest depths, he discovered something that would change the course of his life, and countless others' lives, too: the power of meaning. Frankl's journey wasn't about finding a way to avoid suffering, that was impossible. Instead, he found that even in the face of relentless pain and loss, there were choices he could still make. And the most powerful choice, he realized, was his ability to decide his attitude. For Frankl, this was more than just a coping mechanism, it was the key to survival itself. In every hardship, no matter how severe, he saw an opportunity to find meaning. For him, meaning wasn't an abstract, lofty idea. It was real, grounded, and it was what kept him alive. In those bleak camps, where cruelty and despair were everywhere, Frankl observed that people could still find meaning in three profound ways. First, he saw that work, any work, could provide a sense of purpose. Even in forced labor, there was something deeply human about taking pride in what one did, even if it was merely surviving another day. Work was not just a task, it was a way to maintain dignity. The second source of meaning Frankl recognized was love. This love didn't have to be expressed in traditional ways, as family and loved ones were often taken from each other. But even the memory of love, the memory of a loved one's smile, a shared moment, or a simple touch, could fill a person with enough warmth to survive another day. Love, for Frankl, was timeless, it could reach beyond the darkest barriers. In his most despairing moments, he found solace in thoughts of his wife. That love, that connection, remained, even though he had no idea if she was alive or dead. Love was a reason to keep going, a reason to endure. The third way Frankl saw meaning was in courage. Not a grand, heroic kind of courage, but the simple courage to face suffering with dignity. In the camps, people were stripped of everything: status, possessions, even their names. Yet, he saw that those who could find meaning, even in the smallest gestures or acts of kindness, had an inner strength that couldn't be taken from them. Choosing to endure, to stand strong in the face of so much horror, was a powerful act of human will. Frankl didn't leave the camps as a broken man filled with hatred or bitterness. Instead, he emerged with a new mission: to share the message that no matter how severe the circumstances, people have a choice. We have the freedom to decide how we respond, the responsibility to seek meaning, even in the most hopeless situations. Frankl's discovery has an empowering message for all of us: our greatest freedom lies within, in our ability to choose our outlook and our attitude. It's a simple, yet deeply powerful reminder: even in life's darkest hours, we have the strength within us to find light, to choose hope over despair, and to turn suffering into purpose. At the heart of Viktor Frankl's philosophy is a powerful idea: our search for meaning isn't just a side goal in life, it's the central force that drives us. For Frankl, meaning is more than ambition or achievement. It's a deep, intrinsic motivation, something so essential that it can define our entire existence. He observed that people who found purpose, even in the darkest circumstances, could endure unimaginable suffering. It was this search for meaning that helped Frankl survive the Holocaust, giving him strength and, ultimately, a mission to inspire others. One of Frankl's most profound revelations is that, while everything external can be stripped away, possessions, freedom, even dignity, there is still something untouchable within each of us: the freedom to choose our response. He called this the last of the human freedoms. This freedom is a choice that no external force can take away. We get to choose how we face our circumstances, no matter how dark or difficult they are. In this lies an incredible power. By choosing our attitude, we reclaim control over our inner lives. Frankl's idea here is liberating. No matter how helpless we may feel in the world, we retain the ability to shape our response, to stay true to ourselves. For Frankl, true humanity emerges when we forget ourselves, when we give ourselves to something larger, a cause we believe in or a person we love deeply. This self-transcendence, he believed, is what allows us to actualize ourselves fully. It's in serving others, in dedicating ourselves to meaningful pursuits, that we truly come alive. We often think of self-fulfillment as achieving personal goals, but Frankl argues that it's the opposite. By going beyond ourselves, we discover our deepest humanity. Frankl challenges us to stop asking, "What is the meaning of life?" because, he believes, life is actually asking that question of us. Every experience, every challenge, is life urging us to answer. Each day, life presents us with problems to solve and tasks to complete. Our responsibility is to find the right answers, to rise to these challenges, and to make choices that honor the life given to us. Life doesn't come with a ready-made purpose. It's up to each of us to uncover and create our own. Frankl believed that life isn't fundamentally about chasing pleasure, as Sigmund Freud suggested, or about striving for power, as Alfred Adler proposed. Instead, he argued, life is a journey to uncover and embrace meaning. Frankl saw meaning as something far more enduring and deeply fulfilling than pleasure or power. While pleasure can be fleeting and power may leave us feeling empty, meaning is what anchors us, giving us a reason to rise every morning, especially during life's hardest moments. To Frankl, the quest for meaning is our greatest task and responsibility. Every one of us is here with a purpose waiting to be discovered, a purpose that goes beyond personal gain. Finding meaning is a journey, often demanding courage, patience, and a willingness to look beyond immediate desires. It asks us to go deeper, to reflect on what truly matters to us, and to act in ways that honor that calling. This quest for meaning gives our lives a sense of direction. It could be in our work, in caring for others, or in the quiet commitment to live authentically and with integrity. It could be about standing up for values we cherish, contributing something worthwhile, or simply loving others deeply and selflessly. The path is unique to each person, and our task is to find the one that feels true to who we are. In Frankl's view, even suffering has a place in our search for meaning. Life will inevitably bring challenges, and rather than avoid or resent them, we can use these moments to grow, to build resilience, and to find strength within ourselves that we may never have known we had. In this way, suffering doesn't destroy us but instead becomes a stepping stone on our journey toward purpose. Frankl's perspective is empowering. He reminds us that the great task of our lives is to find our own unique path to meaning. This isn't about following someone else's blueprint or chasing superficial goals. It's about listening to our own inner voice and creating a life that resonates with our deepest values. Viktor Frankl offers a timeless message on how we can find meaning in life, even when everything else seems beyond our control. He believed that meaning is woven into the fabric of our everyday lives, in the work we do, in the love we give, and in the courage we show, especially when times are tough. First, Frankl highlights work as a source of significance. It's not about any job, it's about doing something that feels valuable and purposeful. When we dedicate ourselves to a meaningful cause or create something that adds value, we're giving a part of ourselves to the world. In work, we find purpose, pride, and a chance to contribute. It becomes a way to leave a mark, to do something that, in some small way, makes life better for ourselves and others. Then there is love, a force that transcends words, possessions, or circumstances. For Frankl, caring deeply for another person is one of the purest ways to experience meaning. Love connects us to something larger than ourselves. It offers us strength, inspiration, and hope, even in the darkest times. When we care for someone deeply, we live not just for ourselves but also for the joy, safety, and happiness of another. That bond, that connection, becomes a reason to endure, to keep going, and to face challenges with courage. And then there is courage, which Frankl saw as a vital response to suffering. Life can be harsh, often presenting us with pain and hardship that seem unbearable. But even in suffering, we have a choice, how we respond to it. Frankl believed that by facing suffering with dignity, resilience, and grace, we transform it into something meaningful. It's not about ignoring the pain, it's about choosing to rise above it, to find purpose in the act of enduring, to turn suffering into a testament of our strength. Frankl reminds us that no matter how severe life's trials may be, there is one thing that no force on earth can take from us, our freedom to choose our response. Circumstances may be out of our control, but our attitude is always within reach. We may not control what happens to us, but we always control what we choose to feel, how we decide to react, and what we will do in response. This freedom, this inner power, is the essence of our humanity. In essence, Frankl's philosophy is a reminder that life's meaning isn't found in an easy, struggle-free existence but in the ways we face its inevitable hardships. It's about finding significance in our work, love in our relationships, and courage in our struggles. When we exercise our freedom to choose how we respond, we transform ourselves, and we make life deeply meaningful, no matter what it throws our way. Viktor Frankl had a unique perspective on success. He believed that aiming directly at it can actually lead us away from it, much like happiness. The more we fixate on success, making it the goal of every effort, the more elusive it becomes. Frankl argued that success, like happiness, cannot be hunted down or forced. It's something that comes naturally when we're deeply involved in something meaningful, something greater than ourselves. When we shift our focus from trying to succeed to dedicating ourselves wholeheartedly to a purpose, success follows almost as an afterthought. This doesn't mean we shouldn't have goals or dreams, but that success is best approached as a companion to our dedication, not the finish line itself. Success ensues when we give our best to something we truly believe in, something that matters not just to us but to others, to a community, or even to the world. Frankl also saw success as a byproduct of surrendering ourselves in love to another person. This isn't about losing oneself or neglecting personal growth, it's about discovering purpose and fulfillment in the act of caring deeply for someone else. When we give ourselves genuinely, whether to a cause or to another person, we find a sense of purpose that is far richer and more enduring than any trophy or accolade. In Frankl's view, chasing success or happiness as ends in themselves often leaves us feeling empty, constantly reaching for something just out of grasp. But when we pour ourselves into something meaningful, whether it's a project, a community, or a relationship, success and happiness tend to find us naturally. They come as reflections of the impact we're making, the lives we're touching, and the authenticity we bring to our work and relationships. So instead of making success the target, Frankl encourages us to focus on purpose and dedication. When we give our energy to something greater than ourselves, we find that success is no longer something we have to chase, it's something that unfolds in its own time, bringing a deeper satisfaction and a sense of fulfillment that no mere pursuit of achievement could ever offer. In his experiences within the brutal world of concentration camps, Viktor Frankl encountered the psychological phenomenon known as the delusion of reprieve. It's a term in psychiatry describing the mindset of a condemned person who, even just moments before their impending death, clings to the belief that they might somehow be spared. This hope isn't rational, yet it's a powerful force that keeps people going. Frankl and his fellow prisoners found themselves in a similar state, holding on to any fragment of hope, convincing themselves that maybe, just maybe, things wouldn't be as terrible as they seemed. Even in an environment as horrific as a concentration camp, this spark of hope, the belief that something would change at the last moment, was a defense mechanism, a form of resilience. Frankl observed that in an environment as severely unnatural as a concentration camp, people would react in ways that might seem abnormal in any other context. But in the face of unimaginable suffering, these abnormal reactions actually became normal responses. Frankl saw that the mind has a way of adapting to extreme situations. The instincts that emerge are often surprising but ultimately reveal the mind's extraordinary will to survive. For instance, in the camps, numbness and emotional detachment were common. Prisoners would distance themselves emotionally from the horrors around them, finding ways to protect their minds from breaking. They would suppress reactions that would otherwise come naturally in ordinary circumstances, reactions like grief, anger, or fear. In a place where every day was a matter of life and death, these abnormal responses were entirely appropriate. They became survival tactics. Frankl's insight here is powerful. In situations of extreme hardship, our minds adapt in ways that defy conventional definitions of normal. What might seem irrational or unusual in a stable world becomes essential in a world turned upside down. He believed that understanding this could help us cultivate empathy and patience with ourselves and others, especially in times of crisis. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is, in many ways, the mind's attempt to maintain a sense of control, a thread of hope, or simply to endure another day. Ultimately, Frankl's reflections highlight not only the incredible resilience of the human spirit but also its adaptability. By recognizing that even our strangest or seemingly irrational responses can have a purpose in difficult times, we gain a new understanding of what it means to be human. In the concentration camps, Viktor Frankl noticed that one of the most profound psychological shifts among prisoners was the onset of apathy, a dulling of emotions and a sense of profound detachment from everything around them. This was no ordinary indifference but a survival response to the relentless trauma of daily life in the camps. For many prisoners, apathy became a defense mechanism that shielded them from the overwhelming horrors of their reality. In the early days of imprisonment, fear, grief, and even anger might have been common reactions. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, those initial feelings faded, replaced by a numbness that allowed prisoners to withstand daily beatings, starvation, and extreme deprivation without breaking down. Frankl described apathy as the second psychological stage that prisoners went through, following the initial shock and horror of arrival. This emotional numbing became a way to survive. Without it, the constant barrage of brutality would have been unbearable. The apathy that set in wasn't about giving up on life. Instead, it was a narrowing of focus to the absolute essentials, getting through the next day, finding food, staying warm, and watching out for one's fellow prisoners. In a world stripped of normalcy, this dimming of reality and emotional response helped prisoners conserve the mental and emotional energy needed to preserve their lives. Emotions like hope, anger, or joy took a back seat, as all their efforts were channeled into the simplest task of all, survival. By becoming emotionally detached, prisoners were able to insulate themselves, in some way, from the cruelty they encountered. It was a way to lessen the psychological impact of being in an environment where their dignity was stripped, their humanity was denied, and their lives were constantly at risk. Through apathy, they created a mental shield, one that kept their spirits from being completely crushed by the horrors around them. In the camps, where Frankl and others witnessed the darkest sides of human nature, apathy allowed them to keep going. It was, paradoxically, a form of resilience. By dimming their emotions, they could focus on staying alive and, perhaps, on helping one another survive another day. This emotional numbing, painful as it was, became a crucial part of their self-defense, a testament to the human mind's ability to adapt in ways that are difficult to imagine. In the depths of the concentration camps, Viktor Frankl observed a powerful truth: spiritual strength and inner resilience could sometimes mean more than physical endurance. Sensitive people, those with an intellectual or spiritual richness to their inner lives, often suffered intensely, yet this inner life became a source of profound strength. While they may have lacked the physical robustness of others, their ability to retreat into their minds, to a place untouched by brutality and deprivation, gave them a resilience that defied outward appearances. For these individuals, the hardships and horrors of camp life were not erased or softened, but they found a way to transcend them. Inwardly, they preserved a life of imagination, memory, and reflection. They could think of books they'd read, ideas they cherished, or loved ones they held dear. This spiritual freedom allowed them to maintain a sense of dignity and self-worth, even in conditions that sought to strip away every last shred of humanity. It's as if they held on to a private world within, a refuge no one could reach. Frankl also discovered that love, more than anything else, could become a powerful source of survival. Even though the prisoners were separated from their loved ones, many of whom might no longer be alive, the very thought of these people became a lifeline. Love, in Frankl's eyes, went beyond the physical presence of another person. It existed independently, rooted in the spiritual and emotional essence of the beloved. For Frankl, the memory of his wife, her image, and the thought of her inner self gave him strength in ways he couldn't fully explain. He felt her presence not in a literal sense, but in a way that reminded him of his own humanity, of the beauty that life could still hold, even in a place that had stripped away almost everything else. This idea of spiritual strength shows the paradox that Frankl observed in the camps, that people who seemed outwardly fragile or sensitive sometimes withstood the harshness of camp life better than those who were physically stronger. For these prisoners, it wasn't their bodies that kept them going but their spirits, the part of them that clung to something deeper, something beyond the reach of their captors. Their inner world, filled with meaning, memories, and love, became a sanctuary of freedom and dignity. In a place designed to break them, these individuals discovered an unbreakable part of themselves. They were able to survive not just by physical endurance but by drawing on their spiritual reserves, on the profound realization that while everything around them could be taken, what lay within, their capacity to love, to reflect, to remember, was theirs alone. In this, Frankl found a powerful testament to the human spirit's strength, a reminder that in even the darkest circumstances, there remains a light that cannot be extinguished. Viktor Frankl's reflections on judgment and the freedom to choose one's attitude in the face of suffering are deeply empowering, reminding us of the profound responsibility we carry as individuals. Frankl urges us to never rush to judgment, particularly when considering the actions or behaviors of others. He emphasizes that no one should judge another unless they have first asked themselves with absolute honesty whether, in similar circumstances, they might not have acted in exactly the same way. This call for empathy and self-awareness is essential, as it encourages us to acknowledge the complexity of human behavior, especially when faced with extreme circumstances. In a world where we often make snap judgments or quick assumptions about others, Frankl's wisdom is a stark reminder of the vast gray areas in human behavior. It's easy to criticize from a place of comfort, but true understanding requires us to step into the shoes of another, to consider the context, the pressures, and the forces beyond their control. In his time in the concentration camps, Frankl saw firsthand how ordinary people were pushed to their limits, forced into unimaginable decisions. Judging them harshly without acknowledging the immense psychological and physical toll of their circumstances would be unfair. Frankl's philosophy also sheds light on the most powerful human freedom, our ability to choose our attitude in any given situation. He made a striking observation: everything can be taken from a man, except one thing, the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude, no matter the circumstances. This realization became his core belief throughout his suffering in the camps. While everything else, comfort, possessions, even dignity, could be stripped away, no one could take away his power to choose how he would respond to what was happening to him. Viktor Frankl's exploration of meaning in suffering is both profound and transformative. He presents an idea that many may find difficult to grasp: if there is a meaning in life at all, then there must also be meaning in suffering. This may seem paradoxical, especially when we face pain, loss, and hardship that feel overwhelming and unfair. But Frankl's wisdom teaches us that suffering is an inseparable part of life, as intrinsic to the human experience as fate and death itself. The core of his philosophy is that suffering is not something that can be avoided, erased, or denied. It is woven into the fabric of life in such a way that without it, life itself would be incomplete. This powerful statement challenges us to rethink our relationship with suffering. We often go through life desperately trying to avoid pain, fearing it, or resenting it when it comes. But Frankl invites us to see suffering not as something purely negative, but as a space for growth, for meaning, and for transformation. In his eyes, suffering is not simply something to be endured, it is an opportunity, a precious chance to choose how we respond, to find purpose even in the darkest of times. Frankl speaks from the depths of his own suffering in the concentration camps, where he experienced the most unimaginable horrors. And yet, he found that the way in which he accepted his fate, the way he chose to carry his suffering, was crucial to maintaining his sense of meaning. The way a man takes up his cross, as Frankl put it, is where the opportunity lies to deepen his life. The challenge is not in avoiding suffering, but in how we respond to it. In those moments of pain, we are faced with the chance to define ourselves, not by the suffering itself, but by how we endure it, how we transcend it, and how we find meaning in the struggle. The image of taking up one's cross is deeply symbolic. It reminds us that, just as Christ carried his own cross in the face of unimaginable pain, each of us has a personal cross to bear. This is not to say that we should seek out suffering, but rather that when we are faced with unavoidable pain, we can choose to meet it with courage, dignity, and a search for meaning. Frankl believed that even in the most terrible circumstances, the human spirit can rise above its external conditions. We may not control what happens to us, but we always have control over how we face it. Suffering, Frankl argues, is where we find our greatest potential for growth and self-actualization. In the darkest moments, it is possible to find a deeper purpose, a reason to keep going, a cause greater than oneself. Through this perspective, suffering becomes a crucible, a space in which we can forge strength, compassion, and resilience. In suffering, we may uncover parts of ourselves that we never knew existed, the depths of our humanity, our ability to love, to hope, and to endure. By reframing suffering as a source of meaning rather than a burden to bear, Frankl offers us a powerful tool for resilience. It's not about ignoring the pain or pretending it doesn't exist, but about finding ways to infuse it with meaning, to rise above it, and to use it as a catalyst for personal growth. This, Frankl suggests, is the ultimate freedom that remains with us, the ability to choose our attitude in the face of suffering. In doing so, we find a deeper sense of purpose and a connection to life that transcends the pain itself. Frankl's insight is a call to embrace life in its fullness, acknowledging both its beauty and its sorrow, its joy and its suffering. It's about seeing suffering not as the enemy, but as an integral part of the journey that shapes us into the people we are meant to become. When we choose to find meaning in our suffering, we transform it from a source of despair into a wellspring of strength. And in that transformation, we not only survive, we thrive. Viktor Frankl's profound understanding of the connection between the mind, hope, and physical health offers us a powerful lesson about the strength of the human spirit. He understood something crucial: the state of our mind, our courage, hope, and determination, can directly impact the health of our body. In his time as a prisoner in the concentration camps, Frankl witnessed firsthand how a loss of hope could result in a swift and devastating decline in a person's physical health. He observed that the sudden loss of courage, the moment when someone's reason for living seemed to disappear, could be deadly. It's a sobering thought, but Frankl's words remind us of the critical power of hope and purpose. When we lose hope, our bodies begin to follow suit. Without a sense of purpose, without the inner belief that something greater awaits us, our will to live diminishes. Frankl's observation wasn't just psychological, it was a reflection of how deeply intertwined our mental state is with our physical well-being. A person's immune system, their overall health, and their capacity to endure the harshest of conditions can be drastically weakened when they no longer believe that life has meaning. But Frankl's insight doesn't just highlight the dangers of hopelessness, it also points to a powerful antidote: purpose. He famously said, "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how." This is one of his most profound lessons. When we have a compelling reason to keep going, a sense of purpose that pulls us forward, we can endure almost anything. No matter how difficult life becomes, how challenging the circumstances, if we have a strong enough why, a reason to wake up each morning, to push through the pain, to keep fighting, we can bear even the most unbearable how. Purpose, Frankl teaches, is the bedrock of resilience. When a person knows why they are living, when they are deeply connected to something beyond themselves, they are capable of enduring hardships that would otherwise seem insurmountable. That why gives us the strength to carry on, even when everything else seems lost. For many, that why comes from something or someone they love, a cause they believe in, or a dream they are determined to fulfill. It might come from faith, from family, from a commitment to making a difference in the world, or from the sheer will to survive for others. Whatever it is, the key to staying strong, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, is knowing why we are here and what keeps us moving forward. In his experiences, Frankl saw how prisoners who had something to live for, whether it was a loved one, a belief in a higher power, or the hope of freedom, were far more likely to survive the camps. They had a reason, a meaning, to hold on to, and that kept them alive, even in the face of unspeakable horror. Frankl's insights are a reminder that we are not mere victims of our circumstances. Our minds, our courage, and our hope shape our reality, even our physical health. When we embrace a life of meaning, when we find that deeper purpose, we can tap into an immense source of strength. And that strength, fueled by hope, can carry us through even the darkest of days, keeping us physically, emotionally, and spiritually resilient. So, no matter what you are facing, ask yourself, what is your why? What gives you hope? What is the purpose that drives you, even in the face of adversity? Because when you find it, you will discover that there is almost nothing you can't overcome. What life expects from us. There comes a point in every person's journey where we must stop asking the question, what is the meaning of life, and start asking ourselves, what does life expect from me? This shift in perspective is powerful. It takes us from a place of expectation, where we wait for life to provide answers or rewards, and places us squarely into a space of responsibility. Life doesn't exist to simply fulfill our desires or make us comfortable. Rather, it challenges us to grow, to adapt, and to rise above our limitations. It is not about what we expect from life but what life expects from us in each moment, especially in the face of adversity. In the midst of unimaginable suffering, Viktor Frankl realized this profound truth: life is constantly questioning us, not in a cruel or callous way, but in a way that challenges us to grow and to find our way through hardship. And the only way to meet that challenge is by accepting that life's true purpose is not about avoiding pain, but about finding meaning through it. Each moment of suffering is an opportunity for us to decide how we will face the challenge. Will we be victims of circumstance, or will we rise up and meet life's demands with strength and courage? Frankl's own experience in the concentration camps taught him, and he taught others, that when faced with suffering, we cannot look outward for someone to take our pain away. We must look inward. The reality is stark: when suffering comes, no one can bear it for us. We are forced to face it alone, but in this solitude lies our unique opportunity. How we face our suffering, how we carry the weight of it, how we endure, will define us. For Frankl, the key was to recognize that even in our suffering, we have a task to fulfill. Every individual has their own unique burden to bear, and it is our response to that burden that gives it meaning. There is no shame in suffering, no shame in feeling weak or vulnerable. Tears are not a sign of failure but a sign of courage. They are proof that we are willing to face our pain, that we are not hiding from it, but rather, embracing it in all its rawness and vulnerability. The act of bearing our suffering with grace, of choosing to endure, is itself an act of extraordinary courage. But life's expectation is not that we simply endure without purpose. It's that we find meaning in the suffering, that we recognize it as part of a larger process of growth. Frankl's perspective is that we cannot escape pain and suffering. It is woven into the very fabric of life. But what we can control, what we do have power over, is how we respond to it. In the concentration camps, Frankl observed something remarkable: those who found meaning in their suffering, those who held on to a purpose, a sense of responsibility, or a reason to live, were far more likely to survive. They knew that life was not simply happening to them, they were active participants in their own journey. They understood that suffering is not a curse but a challenge to face with resilience and meaning. For us, this is a powerful lesson. We are not victims of fate, rather, we are creators of meaning. Every difficulty, every hardship, presents us with a task: to grow, to learn, to choose our attitude in the face of adversity, and to rise to the challenge that life sets before us. Frankl's insights remind us that we each have a unique responsibility in life. We are the authors of our own stories, and we are the ones who must find meaning in the pages of our suffering. Our task is to respond with courage, to take full responsibility for how we meet life's challenges, and to recognize that even in our most painful moments, we can find profound meaning. So, when life questions you with its challenges, don't shy away. Step into the question. Embrace your task. And remember that in doing so, you are writing your own story of strength, courage, and meaning. Life doesn't expect us to be perfect or to escape pain. It expects us to face it with dignity and to grow through it. That, in the end, is what makes life truly meaningful. Responsibility for your life. Every single one of us is unique, with a life and a purpose that cannot be duplicated. This uniqueness isn't just a trivial aspect of our being, it is what gives meaning to our existence. It's what makes us irreplaceable. When we come to realize that there is no one else like us, that no one can fill the shoes of the person we are, it brings forth a profound responsibility for our lives and our actions. In the grand tapestry of life, we often feel small or insignificant, but in truth, each individual has a role, a unique task to fulfill. And with this realization comes the responsibility to protect, nurture, and honor our life. It's not just about survival or getting by, it's about continuing our existence in a way that reflects the deep significance of who we are. Our life is not something to take for granted, but rather, something to be cherished and carried with the weight of knowing that we are irreplaceable. When we understand that no one else can walk our path, live our experiences, or bring our specific gifts to the world, we realize how essential it is to take full responsibility for our own life. Each moment, each choice, each action matters. The responsibility we have is not just to survive, but to thrive, to live with purpose and to create meaning in everything we do. Frankl's powerful message is that we are not passive victims of circumstance. We are active participants in the creation of our own reality. We choose how to respond to life's challenges. We have the freedom to choose our attitude, even when everything around us is falling apart. In fact, the greatest responsibility we hold is to decide how we will face the inevitable suffering and hardship that life throws at us. This concept is captured perfectly in the saying, "That which does not kill me, makes me stronger." It's not a cliché. It's a profound truth that speaks to the heart of human resilience. Every hardship, every setback, every painful moment is an opportunity for growth. It doesn't diminish us, it strengthens us. The suffering we endure does not define us, but rather, it forges us into stronger versions of ourselves. Consider how the struggles we face shape us. They might feel overwhelming at times, but they also offer us the chance to rise above. Think of the trials in your own life, the times when you thought you couldn't take another step, but somehow, you did. You kept going. And in doing so, you grew in ways you never thought possible. In that moment of hardship, you were not only enduring, you were learning, evolving, and becoming stronger. The pain didn't break you. It pushed you to expand your boundaries, to discover hidden strengths, and to realize that there is always more to us than we think. We are responsible for how we approach life's challenges. It is not about avoiding pain, but about embracing it as part of the process of becoming the person we are meant to be. When we accept that we are responsible for our lives, we free ourselves from the grip of fear, victimhood, and helplessness. Instead, we realize we have the power to choose how we will respond and, more importantly, how we will grow from it. So, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What challenges have you faced? How have you grown from them? What unique strengths have emerged through your struggles? Every step, no matter how painful, is an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to embrace the responsibility of your life and make it truly meaningful. Because the life you have, with all its trials and triumphs, is yours alone. You are the creator of your own story, and with every choice, you shape your destiny. Two races of men. In life, there are two races of men, not the divisions of ethnicity, nationality, or social class that society often focuses on, but rather the division between those who are decent and those who are indecent. This distinction transcends groups, and it's not defined by the role one plays in society. It's not as simple as labeling some people as angels and others as devils. Even within the most brutal or oppressive systems, there are individuals who rise above and demonstrate compassion, kindness, and decency. And similarly, within the most seemingly benign or noble groups, there can be those who act with cruelty, indifference, or malevolence. Frankl's insight here is crucial: human nature is complex. Decency is not confined to a specific race, nationality, or social group. It is not about the collective, but the individual. No group is composed entirely of decent people, just as no group is composed entirely of indecent ones. This underscores the truth that we are individually responsible for the moral choices we make, regardless of our circumstances or affiliations. Even in the darkest times, you may find unexpected acts of decency, and sometimes even a decency, among those who seem to be on the wrong side of history. Liberation. When the prisoners were liberated, the experience was almost surreal. The trauma, the suffering, and the relentless brutality had conditioned their minds to a state where reality itself became distorted. Depersonalization took hold. They struggled to process the freedom that had finally come. It was as though they were waking up from a nightmare, unsure whether it was real or just another illusion. This emotional and psychological disorientation is a critical part of the trauma survivor's experience. Freedom wasn't immediately joyous for these liberated men, it was a disorienting, overwhelming adjustment. The true psychological liberation had to occur slowly. These men had to be reminded that, while they had suffered unjustly, they could not let that suffering become an excuse to inflict harm on others. The realization that no one has the right to do wrong, even if wrong has been done to them, was a powerful turning point in the healing process. The crowning experience for those returning from the camps, according to Frankl, was the overwhelming sense that after everything they had endured, there was nothing left to fear, except God. The suffering they had experienced had stripped them of fear. They had seen the darkest sides of humanity and had survived the unimaginable, leaving them with a profound sense of inner freedom. For these individuals, fear of the external world no longer held the same weight because they had faced the worst that life could throw at them. What remained was a sense of spiritual liberation, a shift toward a deeper understanding of life and existence that had been forged through unimaginable suffering. This transformation highlights how adversity can sometimes lead to a profound sense of liberation. Those who have gone through the darkest moments often come out the other side with a new perspective, one that embraces a higher understanding of their place in the world and their moral obligations to others. Through their suffering, they had discovered an inner strength that would allow them to face any challenge with a newfound courage. Logotherapy in a nutshell. Logotherapy, developed by Viktor Frankl, is based on the Greek word logos, which means meaning. Unlike other therapeutic approaches that often focus on the past, such as psychoanalysis, logotherapy is introspective and forward-looking. Its main goal is to help individuals identify and pursue the meaning in their lives, particularly in relation to their future. Logotherapy aims to break the vicious circles that contribute to neuroses by defocusing on the repetitive, self-centered feedback loops that many people become trapped in. Instead of fostering this cycle, logotherapy confronts the individual with the fundamental meaning of their life, helping them gain awareness and thus overcome their neuroses. The will to meaning. Frankl's core belief is that man's search for meaning is the primary motivation in life, not just a secondary rationalization of basic instinctual drives. The meaning we seek is not universal, but unique and specific to each person. Only when an individual fulfills their unique purpose or task does it achieve significance, satisfying their will to meaning. Existential frustration. Existential frustration refers to the feeling of disillusionment or despair that arises when a person struggles to find meaning or a purpose in life. However, Frankl argues that this frustration is not pathological, it's simply a natural part of the human experience. Existential distress is not necessarily a mental illness but can signal that a person is facing a lack of meaning or purpose. Frankl observed in the concentration camps that those who had a sense of purpose or a task to fulfill were the most likely to survive. This underscores a critical aspect of mental health, tension between what we have already achieved and what we still aim to achieve. It's not a tensionless state that we need, but the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, something freely chosen that gives our lives purpose. Thus, Frankl concludes that mental health is rooted in having a sense of purpose and a reason to continue living, even in the most extreme circumstances. Striving for a meaningful goal is what sustains us through life's challenges. The existential vacuum. The existential vacuum is a condition where a person feels a lack of purpose or meaning in their life, often manifesting as boredom. Frankl notes that this vacuum is becoming a significant issue in modern society, especially as automation and technological advancements lead to increased leisure time for many individuals. While more free time seems like a positive development, many people struggle to find meaningful activities or goals to fill the void. This results in a sense of aimlessness and dissatisfaction. As society progresses, more people are facing the existential vacuum. Many workers, once freed from the pressure of constant labor, will likely find themselves with extra hours, yet without a clear sense of purpose, they won't know how to use that time productively. Frankl warns that without meaning, people can easily fall into destructive behaviors, trying to fill the void with things that don't provide true fulfillment. Frustrated will to meaning, power and pleasure. When the will to meaning is frustrated, people often turn to compensatory substitutes. The will to power, in some cases, people may seek to compensate for their lack of meaning by pursuing power or control over others. This can manifest as a drive for wealth, dominance, or recognition, sometimes even through greed or materialism. The will to money, as Frankl notes, can be one of the most primitive ways people attempt to fill their existential void. The will to pleasure, in other instances, the void left by a lack of meaning is filled with a desire for pleasure. This is often expressed through excesses in areas such as sex or indulgence in physical gratification. Frankl points out that the sexual libido can become particularly rampant in those who are suffering from existential frustration, as they try to distract themselves from their lack of purpose by seeking momentary satisfaction. In both cases, these responses are attempts to avoid confronting the deeper existential void. They are compensations for the frustrated will to meaning, but they ultimately fail to provide lasting fulfillment. The meaning of life. The meaning of life is not a fixed, universal concept. It differs from person to person, from day to day, and even hour to hour. Frankl emphasizes that what matters most is not a broad, abstract understanding of life's meaning, but rather the specific meaning of an individual's life at a given moment. Life presents unique challenges at different times, and these challenges shape the meaning of one's existence. To illustrate this point, Frankl compares life to a chess game, where no single move is the best in isolation. Each move depends on the particular situation and the person you're playing against. Similarly, the meaning of life cannot be generalized, it depends on one's specific circumstances and personal mission. Just as there is no one-size-fits-all move in chess, there is no universal meaning in life. Each person has a unique vocation or mission, which they are called to fulfill, a task that no one else can replace or duplicate. Responsibility and meaning. Frankl asserts that the ultimate question is not, what is the meaning of life, but rather, what does life expect from me? Life itself questions each individual, and the way to find meaning is by responding to that question. The response comes through responsibility, taking responsibility for one's actions, choices, and attitude toward life's challenges. Logotherapy, Frankl's therapeutic approach, views responsibleness as the core of human existence. It is by being responsible for our own lives, for how we respond to the world around us, that we find meaning. The essence of existence. Frankl outlines 3 primary ways we can discover meaning in life through creating a work or doing a deed, engaging in meaningful work, creating something of value, or contributing to society allows us to find purpose. Experiencing something or encountering someone, meaning can be found through relationships, love, and meaningful experiences, such as appreciating nature or art, or forming deep connections with others. Attitude toward unavoidable suffering. Frankl suggests that we can also find meaning through how we respond to suffering. While we cannot always avoid pain or hardship, we can choose our attitude toward it, finding purpose in how we endure and overcome it. In essence, human existence is about responding to life's demands, finding personal meaning in our unique circumstances, and embracing responsibility as the key to unlocking purpose in life. The meaning of love. Love, according to Frankl, transcends mere affection or attachment. It allows you to see deeper into the essence of a person. When you love someone, you don't just see them for who they are right now, but you also see their potential, the possibilities they have yet to fulfill. Love gives us the ability to recognize and support the growth of that potential, helping the person become the best version of themselves. By loving another person, you don't just see them as they are, but you help them to actualize their potential, to become who they are truly meant to be. Love, therefore, is not just about being attached to someone, it's about helping them grow, reach their goals, and fulfill their deepest capabilities. The meaning of suffering. Frankl acknowledges that suffering is an unavoidable part of life, but it is not without meaning. In fact, suffering has the potential to offer profound meaning, especially when we are unable to change the situation that causes it. Take, for instance, a terminal illness like inoperable cancer. In such cases, we may not be able to change the external circumstances, but we are challenged to change ourselves. However, Frankl is quick to clarify that suffering is not necessary to find meaning in life. He emphasizes that meaning can still be found even in the midst of suffering, but only if the suffering is unavoidable. Suffering that is unnecessary or self-inflicted is masochistic, not heroic. True heroism lies in the ability to face unavoidable suffering with courage and dignity, accepting that life retains meaning even up to the last moment. In the face of suffering, it is our response to it, how we choose to endure it, that determines whether we find meaning or succumb to despair. The supermeaning. Frankl challenges the existential idea that life is meaningless. He argues that the true demand of life is not to endure meaninglessness but to accept the limits of human comprehension when it comes to understanding life's unconditional meaningfulness. Logos, or the underlying meaning of existence, goes beyond mere logic, it transcends rational thought. Life's transitoriness. The transitory nature of life is essential to understanding its meaning. Nothing from the past is irretrievably lost, rather, everything is irrevocably stored as part of one's personal history. Life constantly presents us with choices, potentialities for the future that we must actualize. These choices shape our legacy, our monument in time. Frankl compares youth, full of possibilities, to the elderly, who possess the realities of their past actions, work, love, and suffering. These realities hold more value than possibilities, as they represent actualized life experiences. Psychiatry rehumanized. Frankl emphasizes that man is self-determining, capable of making choices that define who he becomes, regardless of his circumstances. In every situation, a person has two potentialities: to become a saint or to behave like a swine. The decisions a person makes, not the conditions in which they live, determine which potentiality is actualized. Frankl reflects on human nature's duality. Man has the capacity for great evil, as shown in the horrors of the Holocaust, but he also possesses the ability for nobility, as evidenced by those who entered the gas chambers with dignity and faith. The case for tragic optimism. Frankl introduces the concept of tragic optimism, the ability to remain optimistic despite the inevitable tragedies of human existence, pain, guilt, and death. Tragic optimism allows for turning suffering into a source of human achievement, using guilt as an opportunity for self-improvement, drawing meaning from life's transitoriness, prompting responsible action. Frankl insists that human beings are not just in pursuit of happiness but are in search of a reason to be happy, often through the actualization of meaning in their lives. Even in times of suffering, meaning provides the strength to endure. In this light, Frankl suggests that many suicides stem from a lack of meaning, not a lack of happiness. With a sense of purpose, many individuals would find the strength to live. Suffering. Even in the face of an unchangeable fate, individuals have the potential to rise above their suffering and grow beyond themselves. Frankl believes that the greatest people are those who endure hardship with dignity. They can turn personal tragedy into a form of triumph, mastering their lot in life. Guilt. Frankl argues that guilt cannot be solely explained by biology, psychology, or sociology. People must be held accountable for their actions, and guilt must be faced and overcome. It's not about justifying or explaining guilt, but about growing from it and using it as an opportunity to change for the better. He also rejects collective guilt, stating that it is unjust to hold individuals responsible for the actions of others or a group. German knives. Frankl shares a thought-provoking analogy in response to an American woman's reproach about him writing in German, the language of Adolf Hitler. He asks if she still uses knives in her kitchen, despite knowing that they have been used by murderers. His point is that tools and symbols are not inherently good or evil. Their meaning is determined by how they are used, and we must not judge them by their past associations. Death. Frankl reflects on the irreversibility of life's actions, encouraging people to live as though they were reliving their lives for the second time. If they were to act wrongly in the present, knowing the consequences, would they still make the same choices? Life's meaning is not found in perfect outcomes, but in the responsibility we take for the choices we make, knowing that we leave behind a legacy that cannot be undone. While nothing is irretrievably lost, all of life's experiences are treasured and stored as part of our personal history.